name's Rebecca Such. I'm 27 years old and I've been here for about 5.5 years now. I came here once and I loved it and decided to move here. A story as old as time here in Bellingham. It's a beautiful town. You're 5 minutes from anything you could possibly want outdoors wise or city wise, and it's only an hour to a bigger city or a bigger mountain. It's pretty perfect to me. I'm a freelance marketing strategist. Mainly I do a lot of freelance writing though, and that includes freelance journalism for the Salish Current. Housing, for me, it's like the idea of a house is a pipe dream, something that I can't even fathom right now. For me, like renting is the only option. I've even considered getting a roommate to kind of lessen the burden, and I live in a really affordable apartment compared to most people, but it's just, I've had health issues come up, and I had a moment recently where I realized, like, if I have to take a day or two off of work to deal with a surgery I'm gonna have, I am in trouble and I don't feel comfortable. And so that's why I'm like considering a roommate, because it's just difficult. And I am working very hard all the time, over 40 hours a week, multiple jobs. I nanny on top of the freelancing, but yeah, and I'm in school full time. So it's been pretty rough, but we're all just doing our best right now. Jobs are scarce, and especially in creative fields, but yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about it, honestly. It's kind of crazy being 27 and having friends all around this age, because you see people in very different stages of their life. So I have people who live with roommates and they know they're going to for a long time and they have full-on careers. I would have to be very house poor to even consider buying a house in the next 5 to 10 years. So like, I'm very settled in that. But yeah, there's such a variety in people our age right now, because there are people that are 40 and they're still like, I'm just gonna rent. I've had my career, but it's still not enough that I can comfortably buy a house. It's just really hard to see people so stuck like that for something that you grow up believing is like just what you do. Like, you have a house at 30, and it's like, I know people that have kids and they're like, yeah, we're just gonna live in apartments, and that's something you couldn't even imagine when you were younger. Like, you have kids, you have a house, but it just not realistic for a lot of people anymore. I also work with kids, and seeing kind of the difference in lifestyle is really interesting for kids that grow up in apartments versus in homes. And in homes, it's just, you feel so secure and you own it, and your whole life just feels very secure. You feel much more settled. You know what's happening with that house. It's your home. But in an apartment, they could decide not to renew your lease. They could decide that they need to renovate and they're gonna pass it on to other people. And so you have kids that are being upended, they're moving and they don't feel settled. And that can have a real effect on the mental health and the stress levels they have growing up. And it affects the parent stress level, which has an effect on the childhood as well. It definitely makes a difference. You need secure housing to feel secure in life. And like, it stresses me out as an adult. I can't imagine being a kid and not knowing for sure that you're going to stay somewhere, and not knowing you have a safe yard to run too makes a huge difference. There's a lot of people I know that are like getting married and having kids, and like some of our friends are talking about like, I don't know, getting a house isn't realistic, and I'm wondering if I should even have kids because I really want them, but can I afford to give them the life that they deserve? And that's something I've heard many times and something I've wondered myself. And like, being in the looking for jobs and all that right now, it's been pretty disheartening, if I'm honest. It feels like this constant cycle of like burnout. It's this, you really want to try your best, and you think if you try harder and you work a little harder, then one day you'll get there and you'll be comfortable and financially stable and you'll have that career and get a house. But it's just like, you have to work so hard to get there that you're burning yourself out over and over again, and it's not sustainable for anybody. There's a lot of people in my life right now that are looking at jobs outside of Bellingham because they got laid off because of budget cuts and things like that. And now they don't feel secure here. They're not sure they can pay rent or get a job that they care about. And so they're desperate and they're looking at Colorado, California, anywhere they can. And some people are looking at completely different areas because they're like, well, it's a lower wage, but my savings will go further there. So like, I can stay here and use my savings to try to get by, or I can put my savings into a home somewhere completely different because I can afford that. And then by the time I'm settled there, I'll be used to the lower wage. It feels like that's the only option for some people at this point. Every little thing is piling up, and I know it's hard to pay attention to every little detail, and I know it's hard to fix every little problem, but if people can't afford food and they're choosing between a rent payment and dinner for their kids, something is really wrong, and you need to pay attention to that. It has to be a priority because it's going to trickle upwards too. Everyone's going to be affected. It is proven over and over again. If we make more opportunity for people who are younger, for people who are lower income, for immigrants, if we give them more opportunities, it has proven time and again that it will boost our economy. And so if we pay attention to those at the bottom, those down on our luck, if we give them more opportunity and we help them, support them as they try to find more income, as they try to get access to resources, we all will do better for it. It's not a matter of the other people will suffer because we have to have that divide. That divide hurts literally everybody involved. And so you have to pay attention. You have to make it affordable for everybody, or it's just going to spiral. It always does. You worked hard. You earned that house. That's great. You want the space. That's important to you. I don't want to shame anyone for taking that. But if you can, just try to recognize that you were fortunate to have that, to have the opportunities granted to you that made that possible, and try to give back and try to find ways to support people who are not in your position. Try to take that privilege and do something with it. I think that's the key, because I don't think anyone should feel bad for living the American dream and getting the house that they want, even though, you know, it is a really big problem that we have a lot of big homes with empty space, because that is taking up space that is going unused and would be so essential to other people. In San Juan, there's a lot of homes that are vacation homes that are not used for most of the year, and there's people there that can't afford rent. That unused space really means something, and it's bigger than people realize. If you're gonna live that life, that's fantastic, good for you, but consider the other people, consider what you could be doing with that space. And if you're not gonna provide it or change your lifestyle, which you don't have to do, contribute, donate where you can, support causes, pay attention to policies, really try to involve yourself. You don't have to do it too heavily. If you don't want to think too much, just donate. Donate to places that will help, because there are a lot of them. One of the things I love the most about Bellingham is the community aspect. We are a very strong community where we care about our people and we show up for our people. I was just a part of the Bellingham's biggest food bank bash of all time. A few people put together a massive fundraiser for the food bank with 3 weeks notice to try to help them deal with the delays. And we raised over $118,000 in a one-day event. It was incredible. I teared up a little, but it's important to remember that that shouldn't have to happen. We are working really hard. We are supporting our community. Our community is showing up. And one of the things that is really frustrating to me is people that I know are often like, well, you know, the community should be supporting and the government shouldn't really have to take care of all these things and the community should really be responsible for that. And people don't realize that most of these causes are already a majority supported by the community. Like, the food banks are mostly run by the community, some of them entirely by. So like the federal cuts, they're like, oh, well, like some people think the federal payment was all of it. No, we already were paying like 75% of it from community donations from local businesses. Like, most of their budget is already that. The community is giving all that they can. And now with the rising prices, people can't give as much. So these federal cuts are detrimental. And the effects that the economy struggling so much is having on the lower end means people are pulling their donations. That's something that I was talking to Steve Fox at Skagit Valley Neighbors in Need. He was talking about, we have people that have said, I'm so sorry, we just can't give anymore. Like, businesses that were donating a decent sum every month can't donate anymore. And so people are struggling more and more. And we already were doing as much as we can. Like, we're giving, the community is amazing, but it shouldn't be necessary to rely on the community this much. And so it's really just important to remember both sides. You have to keep the positivity of, we can do something about this. But when the community is already trying really hard and it's not doing enough, it's hard to convince people to keep trying, to keep putting in effort, to keep putting in their money. So we really need more from the government and from people who have more means. I don't even have an image off the top of my head because it feels so crazy to me to imagine. But in a dream world, I'd have kids in a house with a yard. That would be incredible. I'd have a job that I love in a field that I love, and I'd get paid well and have benefits. And it's funny because I don't have a crazy dream. I don't want a mansion. I don't want to have a maid or anything like that. I don't need to live by the seaside. I just want to have kids that I know I can help them pay for college and know that I can put food in their mouth and not have to set aside my entire life to do that. I would like to be able to go mountain biking still and enjoy living here and not have to worry about, like, if I have kids, am I gonna have to work 3 jobs just to keep them fed? Am I gonna have to feel guilty having them grow up in apartments and move them occasionally? Like, right now, as much as I've always wanted kids, I work with kids, I love kids, I just can't imagine it. There are a lot of regulations that aren't necessarily necessary anymore, that are just sitting there, that aren't really being taken care of. And so we need updates. We need people who are going through these old policies and regulations and making sure they're still necessary. And if they are, seeing what we can do and what policies we can change, what regulations we can change to minimize the amount of space we have to take up, things that will make it easier to make these buildings feasible, make adding more feasible, and taking up the space in a way that is really intentional.